Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for tuning in to my super chat. Thank you so much, Paul. Your kindness and generosity, it's so appreciated. I appreciate greatly your kindness and generosity. Thank you so much. To my super chat, thank you. Hit subscribe to this channel right now. This is the latest article. Fox News, RFK Jr. likely to be confirmed as Health Secretary. Dr. Siegel says he's going to get in, the doctor predicts. So he can lose Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, and Mitch McConnell. All he needs is J.D. Vance. That's not a problem. Tulsi Gabbard will get in also. The only reason Matt Gaetz didn't, and Pam Bondi is actually much better than, I like Matt Gaetz, but Pam Bondi is actually perfect for Department of Justice. Kash Patel will get in. John Thune is already on record stating all of Trump's picks will get in. Hit subscribe to this channel right now. We're almost at 273,000 subscribers. It is because of you, ladies and gentlemen. We're on our way to 300,000 subs. Hit subscribe. Paul, thank you again. Let's get started, everybody. He'll be in a couple of days.
RFK Jr. about to meet with more than 24 senators this week. He's going to be pretty busy this week with all of these sit-downs. He is nominated, of course.
Oh, he'll be confirmed. These are questions that, if you didn't worship, if you didn't give your heart and soul and allegiance and loyalty to MSNBC, CNN, the Washington Post, the New York Times, you committed blasphemy, heresy, you were excommunicated from polite society, and the issue is that you should be allowed to decide certain things on your own. That's it. These are the wonderful authoritarians who they say, oh, it's for the good of the country. It's for the good of the people. There are numerous factors. The average age of somebody who lost their lives from you-know-what was over 65. In one state, it was 72 with numerous pre-existing conditions. Again, nobody is telling you not to do something. RFK Jr. is not telling you not to do something. He's saying the government doesn't have the right to tell you, you have to do this. That's all. I'm speaking in roundabout terms, algorithmically friendly terms, because it's like he'll get confirmed. It'll be the same people writing hit pieces are oftentimes the same people who wouldn't mind the United States economy to be shut down forever. If liberal Democrats or even never Trumpers were told we had to shut down the economy for 5 straight years, they'd be fine with it. There is no tipping point with certain people. That's it. They are simply going to not rock the boat, and that's it. They don't want to rock the boat, even if they feel something is completely outlandish. But let's continue.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is just getting dressed right now. He wants to buy a little bit of money. Oh, he is dressed. All right. He also is an independent candidate. As you know, he's going to play a key role with the Trump administration. Should there be a Trump 2 on Tuesday, and should we get a verdict actually on election night? That'll be great. So Robert F. Kennedy Jr., ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning. So I know you've lived a lot of your life in Washington, D.C. What did you make of the fact that the Washington Post announced inexplicably on Friday, we're not going to endorse a candidate? And then Jeff Bezos has come out and he said, you know what? We want people to decide on their own.
The Washington Post, the Los Angeles Times didn't endorse candidates because they knew that Harris had a very good chance of losing, at least the intelligent people at those publications, but they also knew that power and influence and political momentum was shifting towards Trump. It was shifting towards President Trump, and they knew that President Trump, with Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, John Ratcliffe, RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, they knew there's a completely new paradigm shift, a complete sea change in American politics. And the constant, Hunger Games, dystopian yellow journalism of years past, of modern American politics, won't fly anymore. ABC News, George Stephanopoulos they lost the case. I believe ABC News had to pay $15 million. CBS might have to pay $10 billion. They don't want to be, they want to pretend that they were on the right side of history, maybe, but they also don't want to pay billions of dollars in defamation suits.
The Washington Post, when I was little, did not endorse candidates, and it only started doing that recently. The problem I have with the Washington Post is the bias in the newsroom.
Front page.
Right, because traditionally you would have an unbiased reporting by the New York Times and the Washington Post, and then the editorial board would meet and vote, and they'd endorse a candidate, and there was supposed to be a Chinese wall between them. But in recent years, they have become blatantly partisan, and I think that's a tragedy for the news, because there's really, there is very, very few sources of nonpartisan news left, except, of course, right here.
All right, there you go. Good answer.
How do you feel, though, about the media at large, though, painting the Trump supporters that you were at that event in New York, at Madison Square Garden? They're painting them all as Nazi supporters, as racist. And this used to be your party. It used to be the part of inclusion, of open debate, but that's changed. Why?
Yeah, at the beginning of this campaign, I made a statement about Anne Frank during a speech, and I wasn't referring to saying anything reminded me of Nazism. I was talking about the rise of totalitarian systems of AI and facial recognition that give totalitarian systems the capacity to control so much of our behavior and to surveil us. And for about 5 months after that, I was called an anti-Semite for invoking the Nazi era. And here you have the leading Democrat.
What Democrats have done, what newspapers have done, and pundits, it's all public relations. They did it with Elon Musk. Elon Musk was pointing to his heart. And it's almost like the liberal sensibility, a performance art that is fueled by liberal sensibilities. Oh, did you see what Musk did? Oh, that means that Trump supporters are, you know what? And it's like, it's as sophomoric as if it happened in middle school with a bunch of kids bullying somebody. They take things out of context. They make absurd leaps of logic. And look, if you are conservative and a journalist reaches out to you, like years back, they reached out to me. It's only to write a hit piece. Okay, this is public relations. They don't write hit pieces on Hunter. They protect him, and then he gets pardoned. The double standard is over. It's done. That's why certain publications didn't endorse Harris. Okay, it's done. And unlike Democrats, Trump, and supporters of President Trump, which is close to 80 million Americans, 77 plus, actually believe in the policies that Trump wants to enact. And he's enacting right now. He's wasting no time. And it's like, Democrats would rather see chaos and mayhem on the world stage and domestically. I mean, something terrible happened also just yesterday in New York. I mean, it's like every single day there's something outlandish that takes place in a blue city. Then they lie about statistics. You can eviscerate all the nonsense. Well, why do people believe crime? Well, because you can't go into a subway without, God forbid, somebody trying to do something heinous. And so, anyway, we can go on forever. Let's continue.
In the last couple of weeks, and the press, MSNBC has been really appalling,
insane,
and the vice president. And there's no link between. I don't even think Madison Square Garden existed in 1939.
Right, it came 1968. It moved to Penn State.
Right, so they're invoking this 1939 meeting of Nazis, and they're saying that somehow this is a reunion. And you go in that. There was a joke made during the speech by one comedian, and the crowd. I was in the crowd at that time, and they groaned. These were not,
no one was laughing.
Nobody was laughing, and there was so much joy in the room, and optimism, and patriotism, and idealism about our country, and it was the opposite of Nazism, and the need to point to you.
The greatest authoritarians, totalitarians, and despots are people who disown friends and family because of ideology. You know, like I tell everyone here all the time, I lost about 10 lifelong friends because I committed heresy. I was excommunicated by the wonderful people who oppose authoritarians and totalitarians. Well, what's more despotic? What's more what's a greater example of cult-like behavior than disowning a friend, a lifelong friend, or a family member because you voted Trump, who is a two-time president who won the popular vote, every battleground state, the Senate, the House, the presidency, and has the Supreme Court? Who's on the wrong side of history there? The supporter of Trump? No. Okay, we know this. He wasn't a consecutive two-term president. You could say, well, you know, we had Trump, then we tried Biden. Weekend at Bernie's. Then we said, this is terrible. This is horrible. We're now going back to Trump because he's a billion times better. And still, they're saying, don't go to Thanksgiving. More turkey for the Trumpers.
Use that most evocative and explosive and incendiary and poisonous reference. And it's being used across the top ranks of the Democratic Party. It's Hillary Clinton, it's Kamala. I think it's bad for our country. And by the way, so many of us, when we were kids in this country, were asked to consider the moral quandary. Would you, if you could go back in time, would you kill baby Hitler before he could do all the damage? And most of us answer, yeah, we would do that. So when you compare an American political figure to Hitler, who was about to become president, right. The kind of people who are already a little unstable, you're really suggesting to them that this man should be killed before he gets into office.
President Trump brought that up yesterday. He goes, you guys going to get me shot again? And he goes, when I was younger, my dad told me never bring up that word, Nazi, in my house. And now I'm being called it. And he said, you're going to get me shot again.
Right.
By the way, they did a study. They said how many people have a great deal, if not a fair amount of trust in the media. Only 31% said yes, they trust the media. That was at 40% in 2012, and it used to be over 70%.
When my uncle was president, it was 85%.
85.
Wow. When you had Walter Cronkite and people like that, and the media is really.
Walter Cronkite didn't care if Republicans or Democrats won. Now you have journalists like crying because Trump won. It's like, are you serious? You didn't cry when Biden won. And I mean, you have like celebrities crying for one thing, but not for the other. It's like, were you crying about the atrocities taking place when people try to come into the country? The absolute atrocity. I'm not even talking about people who happen to commit crimes, terrible crimes, the most despicable, brutal crime. I'm talking about the people who just want a better life. Yeah, they're breaking the law, but then they have to go through unspeakable crimes. And Democrats just, they don't care. It's unbelievable. The hypocrisy is unbelievable.
Really focused on telling the truth to the American public.
When your uncle was president, 6% of Americans had chronic disease. Now it's 60. Add a zero to that.
Yeah.
You've talked a lot about this. You walked in here and you gave everyone in the audience these Make America Healthy Again hats. As a mom, as Americans, we appreciate what you're doing because we're getting older and we're thinking about, we want to live a long life. We want to see our grandchildren. I want to see my grandchildren walk down the aisle. You go to Europe and you might eat pizza in Italy and you don't feel bad and you don't gain weight. We want to know why that happens here in America and what you're going to do. But first, let's play the soundbite. This is Donald Trump at the rally at MSG.
Look, we're not going to let him go too crazy, Elon, with the oil and gas stuff. And, because Robert F. Kennedy cares more about human beings and health and the environment than anybody. And he's going to be absolutely, having him is such a great honor. I've been friends of his for a long time. And I'm going to let him go wild on health. I'm going to let him go wild on the food. I'm going to let him go wild on medicines. The only thing I don't think I'm going to let him even get near is the liquid gold that we have under our feet.
What was your reaction to that?
Well, he always says that, and I get it. But what he's right is, we have the sickest children in the world right now. There's nobody in the world that has that. When I was a kid, the autism rate among American children and in 70-year-old men today, in my generation, is 1 in 10,000. In my children's generation, it's 1 in every 34 kids, 1 in every 22 boys. And the diabetes, a typical physician, when I was a kid, would see 1 case of juvenile diabetes in his lifetime, or a 40 or 50-year career. Today, 1 out of every 3 kids who walk through his office door is diabetic or pre-diabetic. And it's costing us $4.3 trillion a year. It costs zero we paid zero for chronic disease when my uncle was president. Today, it's the biggest expense, 5 times our military budget. It's easy to fix. We have 1,000 ingredients in our foods that are illegal in Italy and other countries in Europe. And the reason for that is corruption. At the food industry and the agriculture, big agricultural producers control FDA. And so they're not worried about public health. They're worried about advancing the mercantile interests of those corporations. And they've let them do things.
The modern day Democrats, had they been around in the time of Socrates, would have offed him, okay? Okay, you're talking about, or actually, he would have, gone for that elixir a lot sooner, okay? I mean, you're talking about look, everyone should do in the United States of America what's best for themselves and their families, and you take care, and you decide, you speak to your doctor, and you don't take advice from just random channels or just random whatever. That being said, the United States government should, like media, just stay. Everyone should stay in their lane. That's it. And then you know what would happen? People would trust media. People would trust the government. But when you have Democrats and CNN and these pundits and Fauci, who was pardoned, by the way, gee, I wonder why, telling you, preaching, pontificating, lecturing, condemning, judging. Well, nobody needs this. This isn't a religion. There's an afterlife. There's a God. It's not the intelligence community or the wonderful, highly educated experts who, God forbid, sometimes are wrong. That's why people who don't like RFK Jr. are being disingenuous. They don't really. There's never been a hit piece on RFK Jr. that doesn't have an ad hominem attack. There's never been a hit piece against RFK Jr., a negative article written against him that refutes anything he says. It's always, well, these people disagree, and these numbers disagree with what he's saying, and it's never a categorical refutation. It's just an attempt at getting the last word to disparage him because he doesn't worship your dogma. He doesn't work. RFK Jr. understands. He had his uncle and his father who were the victims of some terrible, terrible, terrible things. Okay? He doesn't need to. If you're a human being, you're born into the world, and you're not you shouldn't just simply worship groupthink. George Orwell taught us that. You should with reason and logic, think things through. And if everyone is doing something wrong, you learned this in the 80s, or everyone is doing something questionable, or simply because something is popular doesn't mean it's right, you're allowed to be a discerning individual, but not if you're a Democrat.
The companies, the big cereal companies, make 2 kinds of cereals. Like Fruit Loops in our country is just
Fruit Loops tastes good, but you know what? I don't know. I don't know how healthy it is for you. Lou Maldonado, thank you.
Loaded with chemicals and food dyes that are carcinogenic, that they're going to cause ADHD in your kids. If you go across the border to Canada or to Europe, you have the same product, but it has no dyes in it.
Right.
It has good ingredients. So these companies know how to do it.
Right.
If they can get away with it here.
Do you know how you'd approach fixing it? I wouldn't talk that. I want you to answer that. But first, I want you to go to the studio audience. James, you're over there. You have a question for Robert F. Kennedy Jr.?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for just taking our questions and being here. But we all know that access to healthy foods is not always easy or affordable for many. What are some ways that you hope to change this?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I would say that you cannot afford to eat bad foods because it's going to affect your health and you're going to pay later on. And, you know, with food, we can solve the diabetes crisis. Most people who have diabetes or pre-diabetic can be cured with good food. And if they choose instead to be cured by Ozempic, the government then pays $1,500 a month for the rest of their lives. And with a fraction of...
I'm going to speak in algorithmically friendly terms, okay? Okay? And, you know, I can lose a little weight myself. I have some muscle on me, but I could lose a little weight. I'm losing a little weight, you know. You could see my, you know, weightlifting videos, whatever. What do you think is better? What do you think is better for you? Making sure that what you consume is healthy and good and nutritious, or doing what RFK Jr. just referenced right now, which seems very bizarre. I mean, just looking at it seems very bizarre, what he was referencing, the product or whatever. Which, no opinion either way, I'm just saying. What do you think? What do you think is healthier?
That we could give everybody organic foods 3 meals a day in this country. What I would do is, you know, the first thing I do isn't going to cost you anything.
Sandra, thank you. Mark, thank you. I grew up in the 1950s. Has the American IQ dropped? I think the IQ has stayed the same. Maybe people are even, who knows? I think the lack of wisdom. Sandra, I think we've, in terms of wisdom, we unfortunately lack the same type of wisdom that we had in years past. Sandra, thank you. I think wisdom is more important than IQ or intelligence. Thank you, Sandra, and I agree with you. There was more common sense. Mark, why shouldn't chemical food be banning you? I know. Exactly. Mark, thank you so much. Sandra, thank you. Exactly. What is this man doing? I don't like RFK Jr. I'm a good Democrat. The man is a Kennedy. I mean, and RFK's son, JFK's nephew. Oh my God, because he had the audacity to leave the Democratic Party paradigm of thought. Big deal. That's like a good thing. That's a good thing. Thank you, Sandra. I think that we've lost a bit of wisdom as a country. It's the movie Idiocracy, but the liberal, like that was, from what I understand, kind of going after conservatives. But it's Idiocracy, but the liberal version. Mark, thank you. I agree with you, Mark. Thank you.
Anything, because I'm just going to tell the cereal companies to take all the dyes out of their food.
It seems
And
pretty
give
simple.
us the same cereal. By the way, President Trump was cooking at McDonald's the other day and giving people French fries. And people criticized me, and they said, well, you know, he's out there giving fast food. And I said, I don't have anything against fast food. I'm against food that has seed oils. When I was a kid, McDonald's was made with tallow fat. That was good for you.
This is not, I'm not recommending anything, just a little tidbit. I go, you know, let's say it's Whole Foods or, you know, whatever, like a, you know, very nice. I guess you could find high-end olive oils in a number of places, but I find that the premium olive oils from Italy, for example, it costs kind of an arm and a leg, but they make the food taste so much better, and I believe it's a lot healthier. This is not a recommendation, just giving my 2 cents.
And your body needs that. It makes you healthy. It's great. Why aren't we making it with Telefat again? In England, McDonald's has a McDonald's French fry has 3 ingredients.
McMuga.
Ingredients in it. It's like potato, sugar, and some oil or tallow. Yeah, salt. Sorry, potatoes, salt, and some Telefat. In our country, it has 17 ingredients.
Wow.
Oh, and none of them are good for you.
Okay. Well, obviously something's got to give. Lynn.
Also, when you think about like McDonald's French fries, or there's almost like something engineered where you want to keep munching on it. Am I wrong here? I'm again not a recommendation. I'm actually saying it's not good for you. Very likely, possibly, potentially. Potentially. This is not a recommendation in any way, shape, or form.
Lynn, right in the front row, RFK has got a question for you. Lynn?
Hi. I grew up a Bostonian where the Kennedy name is sacrosanct. How did you get the courage to stand up against the liberal media and your famous family?
Well, I was led one thing to another. I saw what the truth that was happening to our kids, and I had to make a choice between whether I was going to try to help people get healthy again. And then there were other reasons that I left the Democratic Party. The party that I grew up with was the party of peace. It was the party of constitutional rights and civil rights. It was the party of that stood up to Wall Street and the big corporations. Today's Democratic Party is the party of war. It's the party of censorship. It's the party of surveillance. It's the party of big tech, big ag, big banking, the military-industrial complex, and big ag, and big food, and big pharma.
All the things that the communists and socialists and progressives and democratic socialists and far left and liberal Democrats and wonderful, morally superior, highly educated Democratic voters stand for, but don't, in many cases, don't believe that they stand for, but it's actually the case. There's a reason Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney voted for Harris, and that's not a guilt by association kind of, smear. It's because the policies align directly with the Bush, Cheney, Rumsfeld policies. JFK was one of the great presidents that we've had for this reason. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, he was told by his advisors, a specific general and specific advisors, to invade Cuba. And he said no. There was the Bay of Pigs. He went against the experts, and he averted the end of the world. Could you imagine Joe Biden in the Cuban Missile Crisis? I mean, could you imagine Harris? Could you imagine Biden, Clinton? Look what they did to Libya. Look what happened, all the invasions that took place under their watch. Could you imagine? You can't even get Biden to speak in a conference, a press conference. One debate. They were mortified. Even George Clooney wrote an article, he has to go. Could you imagine Joe Biden during the Cuban Missile Crisis? One nationally televised debate, George Clooney comes out and says, for the good of the country. Could you imagine? Democrats went from JFK to Joe Biden. Okay. It's like the equivalent of going from a Lamborghini to a tricycle. So it's like, what made JFK great is that he learned with the Bay of Pigs, but then he understood, you know what? Sometimes you're given bad advice, even from experts. All the people who got us into the Vietnam War were brilliant Ivy League, highly educated, super intelligent, high IQ individuals. They lacked wisdom. But anyway, let's continue.
And so I didn't leave the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party left
You
me.
tried to run as a Democrat, and they locked you out. They wouldn't put you on the ballot.
And they took away RFK Jr.'s security detail. I mean, could you imagine how sinister the modern-day Democratic Party potentially is? I mean, they did it to Trump. Lord knows what happened with Trump's security on the high-ups. I'm not talking about on the ground level. I'm talking about from a bird's-eye institutional bureaucratic standpoint. How on earth the cordon, the perimeter was not wide enough to cover where the assailant was stationed. I mean, could you imagine? I mean, it's like everybody sees what's going on, you know. The life of a morally superior, highly educated, petulant, wonderful, morally superior liberal Democrat is one of plausible deniability. Well, we didn't know. Well, you can't prove it. You can't prove it. It's like we all know. These are sophomoric, vapid, stupid games. And now you've angered Trumpy and everyone around him. You've pushed the envelope too much. And now Trump is playing James Brown, The Big Payback, on continual loop for 4 years.
I think we have one more question. Where's Janelle? Is Janelle on this side of the room? Hey, Janelle. What is your question?
About 100,000 schools participate in the USDA's national lunch program during the year. If you're given a position by the Trump administration in the agricultural department, what will you do to improve school lunches?
I'll get processed food out of school lunch immediately. About half the school lunch program goes to processed food. About 70% of food stamps go to processed food. 10% of food stamps go to sugar drinks, to sodas. We're creating diabetes problem in our kids by giving them food that's poison, and I'm going to stop that.
Robert, we got to let you go. But quick question. You were talking about the difference from the McDonald's here versus another country, or the Fruit Loops here versus another country. What's the reason why?
Yeah,
if they know how to make it already, why aren't we doing it?
It's because it's cheaper for them to put the chemicals.
It's a cost.
Yeah, and President Trump wants to get the chemicals out. And he wants to make us healthy because in the long run, that's cheaper for our country.
Right.
It's America. America is the best at everything. We need to be the best at food, too.
There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, RFK Jr.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian.
Instead of showing us her substance and character, the DNC and its media organs engineered a surge of popularity for Vice President Harris based upon, nothing.
Do you remember when Harris usurped Biden after the one debate where Democrats were mortified? You saw these speeches that she was giving, and there was so much, there's so many people yelling and cheering, and it's what? About 2 months ago, Harris polled lower than Biden, who was already in the dumpster in terms of polling. Where did all this? That's why Hollywood has merged with the DNC and Democrats. That's why you get all these celebrities. Oh, vote for Democrats. It's like they're one organization now. It's all theater. It's all a theatrical performance. That's why they don't even have a functioning primary. Ask Bernie Sanders and ask Biden, who won his primary and then he was removed.
No policies, no interviews, no debates, only smoke and mirrors and balloons.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. accusing Democrats and the media of staging Kamala Harris' ascension as the nominee without one primary win to show for it. And in addition to endorsing Trump, Kennedy has withdrawn his name from the ballot in several battleground states. Here to react, Fox News contributor and former economic advisor to President Obama, Robert Wolf. He's very nervous about this interview. He called Pete ahead of time. He's like, you're going to make Will do this. So Robert stuck with.
I was actually saying that you can use Pete to make it more fair. That's
I need a tag team partner. And he said, that's the only way, one-on-one, and I get knocked out by Robert Wolf. Okay, here we go. I'm going to do my best to bob and weave, Robert.
I'm telling you, me too.
Let me ask you this. You've got to bob and weave against what's going on here within your party. Okay, RFK, lifelong Democrat. Nicole Shanahan, lifelong Democrat. Not only do they drop out of the race, they throw their support to Donald Trump. What a statement, Robert.
So I saw what you played before. He wanted to run as a Democrat. He wanted to meet with Vice President Harris last week. 3 months ago, this was his quote. RFK said President Trump scanned the American worker. He had a tax cut for the rich. He's been all over the place. So I think that for the most part,
he was running as an independent, and Democrats were petrified and tried to get him off the ballot because they knew that he would take Democratic votes. Not because he was trying to pander to Democrats, but because there are a great many Democrats who are tired of their political party. They think their political party left them. And, it did.
I gave you your extra 10 that turned into 20.
Right, that's fair.
But
your turn.
The 5 percentage points, I'm not going to sit here and tell you today, all 5 are going to Donald Trump. But that's not necessary, Robert. We're talking about Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Arizona, how this affects an election that could come down to tens of thousands of votes.
Hello.
We'll wrap it up real quick, ladies and gentlemen. Let's just listen to this real quick.
Everyone, I'm Lisa Booth, along with Cheryl. Our move.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Run an extraordinary campaign for President of the United States. I know, because he also went after me a couple of times. I didn't like it. His candidacy has inspired millions and millions of Americans, raised critical issues that have been too long ignored in this country, and brought together people from across the political spectrum in a positive campaign grounded in the American values of his father, Robert Kennedy, a great man, and his uncle, President John F. Kennedy. Bobby and I will fight together to defeat the corrupt political establishment and return control of this country to the people.
So, ladies and gentlemen, it's pretty much a done deal. He'll be confirmed, and it's just a matter of a couple of days, maybe a week, week and a half, but he'll be confirmed, ladies and gentlemen. We'll get to the Senate hearings. Kash Patel, RFK this week. They'll both be confirmed. Pam Bondi it's a done deal for all of them. Hit subscribe, everybody. God bless you all. To my super chat, thank you. Paul and everybody here, thank you so much. This is going to be a fun 4 years. I'm so